everybody. Hey, Beck. Welcome to Can We Say It?
Hey,
How you going?
hi, Han. I'm good. Can I say before we even start off with anything, I have had my first glass of wine in like
What?
a year and a half. A year and a half, and I've not had a glass of wine.
OMG. How did that first
Oh,
sip feel?
I mean, I don't know if it
Did
was
it go
really,
down like an
it,
elixir? Did it
it
just go down into
really,
your chest?
it really did, and I don't know if it was good wine or what, but it was the best thing ever. I'm like in a really good place right now. So I just had to
Absent.
get that out.
Oh, I'm very happy for you. Absence makes the wine taste better, I guess.
Mm-mm. It
uh,
does, it does.
that is very exciting. Um, and and what led to this shocking turn of events?
So
Just
shocking.
just needed to know.
Well, it is our 5th anniversary and it
Oh,
it
congratulations.
deserves some wine, and I was like, "It's been
Oh,
so
nice.
long, the baby's asleep," and yeah, I
Hell
needed
yeah.
it. I
Hell
needed a
yeah.
wine.
Nice.
We're in
You did.
isolation.
You deserve a you deserve at least a glass of wine, and it's good for you, bit of antioxidants there with a nice red,
We
and,
absolutely shall
a
I
calm, happy mum is a good mum.
Right, we said cheese, or shall I say l'chaim to
Aha!
our
Good
our
segue.
episode tonight?
Good segue.
It's
L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim
l'chaim
to life, to life. So I guess,
to life.
we wanna talk about it we wanna talk about we wanna talk about Orthodox, the show. I mean, where
Unorthodox,
do we
yes.
even start? I know it's called Unorthodox.
Yes,
It's called Unorthodox or Orthodox?
it's called unorthodox.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Beck recommended this. We are still in isolation. I binge watched the whole thing yesterday. I was
And
like,
I
"Yeah, Beck,
knew
look, I'll
you
just watch
would.
one episode." And she's like, "You won't stop." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it's
No.
alright. Just watch one just to do some research so we could talk about it on the podcast." Because if you noticed in our trailer, we talk about being in part of organized religion.
Mhm.
And we weren't making this stuff up. We were in, let's say, Beck and I went to the most religious, most orthodox school in New South Wales.
Yeah,
We're part of the Lubavitch community. We were part of it. The
absolutely.
the religion portrayed, not the religion, the sect of the religion that was portrayed in the series on Netflix called Unorthodox
Unorthodox.
was, I'm thinking they were Haredi, which is a sect of religious Jews that live
Well, they were
in New
called
York in a
they were
community.
called the Satmar Jews. So basically, these Jews
Okay, thank you
came
for the clarification, Beck. I'm glad someone's done their
it's
research.
it's only because I just watched the making of. So,
Okay.
they were called the Satmar Jews, and they were from Hungary originally, and they were mostly Holocaust survivors. So
Uh-huh.
it helped me understand a little bit of what I was watching, but if anyone, and I think a lot of people have watched it, I think people are just curious because 'cause they've seen the guys in the black hats and the long,
The
payas, like
payers,
the,
yeah.
so they're probably watching this going, "Wow, okay." But
Oh, yeah, it's another world, and I'm glad
it's
you
another world.
clarified that particular Satmar Jews because there were a couple of ideologies that they expressed about how they're repopulating the 6 million lost, and
Yes.
that
Yeah.
didn't exactly fit into what we were taught in the school or in our community. It was, children are fruitful and there shouldn't be many, like you should
Yeah.
have as many as possible. It wasn't you're repopulating the 6
Yeah,
million
I
lost. It
didn't
wasn't Holocaust focused, I guess.
No, it wasn't, and, like, it's strange because I don't know, it brought so many
Oh my god.
emotions up.
Chills. Beck, Beck, you went okay, so Beck and I, we've got 18 hours apart. Beck's like, "You won't stop after the first episode," and literally, I sat down just to watch the first episode, full body chills,
Yeah,
crying, the works, and I was,
because I
like, just
feel
voice noting and texting.
I don't think we realize, like, I didn't think we realized how affected, or I don't know, it was like watching it from an outsider's perspective, but we'd been through it, and I didn't
Oh,
realize how it
yeah.
affected us and how it can, it just
Mm.
seemed normal growing up in that.
Mhm. It's very surreal. Definitely, I agree with you. It stirred up all these emotions and memories because for
Mhm.
some of our most formative years, we went to the same school in that community for 12 years of our life, and
Yeah,
those are formative years where your whole, makeup as a person is created and influenced, and we were in that world
yeah.
while our parents were not
Our
religious
parents were
at
not.
all.
No.
Not they were traditional. So we were in a very unique situation where we were going to this particular school, and we were
Mhm.
exposed in this particular community, but there were people of various, you would call it religious, levels. So, like, you've got
Yes.
the really extreme ones, fundamental, with, like, people who didn't have a TV in their house or couldn't listen to music. Yeah. To kind of like people bringing non-kosher salami into school, where Beck's parents and I, and our families were more traditional, where we either lit candles on a Friday and had dinner, celebrated the high holidays together
Yeah,
with family, but we weren't it's not like we weren't wearing all the right, the dress code. We drove our parents drove us to activities on a Saturday, and we did stuff, and we could
yeah.
eat outside of the
We ate
house.
out. Yeah.
We didn't eat, anything ham or pig related, but,
No. But I think that
it
made it
yeah,
harder for us because we felt like we were doing something wrong.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yes.
I can definitely
So
relate to that. I was afraid to wear pants down the street if someone would see me from school.
yeah, you'd feel ashamed, like you didn't wanna
Ashamed.
do it. Yeah. And I
What about
remember
you?
I mean, I remember, I had dance lessons on Saturdays. I had singing lessons on Saturdays, and we would always have to drive past synagogue, and I would duck so low in the car while we went past because I felt so wrong, and my mum would think I was being absolutely ridiculous. It was insane. I mean, I remember us just watching that. There's a clip of Unorthodox where she gets in the water and she's fully clothed. And I remember us having to dress. We had to swim in our clothes in public, and
Hello, do you remember Jamboree
Jamboree. Yeah,
Recreation Park? I swam in
yeah,
my clothes.
we had to. And these are things like I didn't realize how it was scarring, I think. And
Yeah, it's totally scarring. It's
it,
like that, and when you talked about ducking in the car, it's so, like, rang true because it's that first scene when she's escaping, then she goes into a car to get to the airport, and she's, like, dying if anyone sees her because
Mhm.
it's like complete, blasphemy or
Yeah.
just
Well,
rebellion to do such a thing.
you're
But you
made
should
to
be
feel
going up
very
in a pool of
guilty.
flames. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is like you're feeling guilty for not doing what is supposed to be done, or that's why they keep
Mm.
everything very insular,
Mm.
because they don't want you to see the world in a sense. They want you to be in their world, but there
Yep,
is so much more to the
yep.
world.
Yeah, we played netball in long skirts against other schools who were wearing, like, the traditional little, like, like a short tennis skirt. That's what you'd
Yeah,
normally play in because you need to move around, and we would play against other schoolgirls in long long
yeah, we had
skirts,
to
and
be
I
head
remember
to
I
toe
remember one of
covered.
the kids from the other school going, "How are you playing in that?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Well, even right, I mean, remember when people would ask what school you went to? I didn't
Oh,
know
we were
what to
totally embarrassed.
say. Yeah,
Oh
and
my
when
god.
they looked at us, they gave us the weirdest look, like, "Oh, really? How is it?"
Oh
Or,
god. I'll
you
never
know?
forget there was this dance party, under 18 dance party, and I was dancing with this cute boy at the time, and he's like, "What school do you go to?" I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm pretending I don't hear because of the music. I'm like,
Yep,
"What?"
yep.
He's like, "What school?" I'm like, "What?" And
So
I said it so many times, it was, like, starting to get embarrassing, like, I completely hurt him, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh," and, like, this look on their faces that would emerge when you'd say that, it'd be like, "You're a freak."
mhm. And, okay, so anyone that's watched it or hasn't watched it, it's basically about this young girl that's, she's grown up in this community, in this super Orthodox community in Williamsburg, and she's very unhappy. She eventually just wants freedom. She wants to see. something else she wants to she's trying to escape, and it got
Yeah,
scary at times as well. There was manipulation tactics, there were people after her trying to bring her
and that's
back,
a real
like
thing. That's a real
it is a
thing.
real
That is a
thing.
real thing. There's a lot
Everything
of
we
pressure
watched
from
was
her
real.
community. Yeah. She's under
Everything
a
they
lot of pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like they really, really, like, what we saw was so real to how it is, and I hate to say that, I don't, but it was very real the way it was depicted.
Absolutely, it
What do
was
you think?
extremely authentic. I found it really authentic, down to the decorations and the
Oh, with
candles
the
and the
plastic over
decorations in
the
the
chairs
houses.
even, yeah, everything.
They
It
put it
was
down to the absolute detail. That is exactly I even the way her shaitel, sorry, we're
mhm,
gonna drop in some Yiddish words here and there because we've got full familiar, uh, this is all familiar territory for us, so, we're gonna drop in and show off our Yiddish a little bit here, but,
of
her
course.
shaitel, which is the wig that the way they women who are married wear after they, get married, was exactly how so many of the women in the community we grew up with their wigs, and even to what she was dressed up in, like that style of skirt with this the skivvy is worn under the shirt
Yep,
because the skivvy is too tight lest they see her, the outline of her shape. So the
mhm,
skivvy is like extra modesty under the shirt, and the shirt
yes,
protects that outline, and very, very, like, very spot on details. Like, we went to school with girls
spot
who looked
on.
exactly like
We
that.
went to
Like,
houses like that. We went to
we went
houses.
to houses like that.
We
Yeah,
spent like the Sabbath is that, we spent
correct.
weekends in houses like that.
Mm, yes, and there's a lot
Right?
of rules and restrictions, constant, like, prayers on everything from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. It's all, prayers, and there's so many restrictions, like the Sabbath and the opening scene. Even I think we could probably go into a little bit of a segment about explaining some of this stuff, because there's so many things that, because I was watching the first episode with Nick, and you might have been watching it with Howie, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
like Nick was like, "What's an Aruv?" Like,
Right.
there's so many things that, like, are just like, what is that? And we can explain that, and we're gonna break it down.
Yeah. No, that's what it was really interesting because, yeah, to watch it with my husband who is not that. I mean in the opening scene, how he was like, when is the where and when was this set in? And I'm like, this is set in now. And he
Uh-huh,
was like,
uh-huh.
what? I was like, yes, this is now.
Yeah, it's now.
Yeah, but it does not look like now, but they try to
Mm.
keep it like it was for how
Oh, yes,
many
it's
years
tradition. It's all
ago,
about keeping the
hundreds of
ways
years
and the
ago.
traditions alive, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Oh, yeah, big
To
time.
the fundamental level, though, to probably the extreme where, it's just so well made how they, like, even
Really
how
well made.
the whole wedding scene, like, they literally, and that is kind of how it's done. I know there's some communities now that are more progressive, but really you probably only get to meet the person you were gonna marry. It was an arranged marriage. You met them a couple times, you spoke with them, everyone was around you. There was either your whole family was waiting in the other room, or you'd have to have a chaperone on the dates that you went on. You weren't allowed to go on a date by yourself
Yep,
with a boy, as if you were in, and you could only date if you were interested in being married. So the only reason they met was because
to get
she
married.
she needed to be, yeah, she was getting married off. We went to school with a girl. I remember. I could tell you the name off air back, but I remember the girl that got married when she was 17, and she needed permission, like,
Yeah, because she
not
was,
just
like,
from her not
underage.
just from she was underage. She needed permission not just to get married, but to attend her own wedding because there's alcohol and
This is
stuff.
crazy. It's yeah. No, I remember. It brought so much up. It did. I think you said you were in tears.
Oh,
Yeah, so was I,
continuously
and
throughout every episode.
just because you just felt for this girl and you knew what that life was, and we also, what, I wonder if the people still living that way are happy, and
Okay, they
like
don't
what
I'm thinking that they don't know any other way.
better.
Um,
Yeah,
And obviously what brought it out a lot for this poor girl was the fact that she realized all she was there to do was to make children.
Yeah.
That's and it's a man-made. I mean, all religions are man-made in my opinion, but these kinds of little sects that are shoot off from main religions are are fully man-made, and all these laws are written by men who it's all about keeping as much as the religion says, Eshes Chayil, it's what do you call a woman of valor.
Mhm.
It's written in a way to keep the woman as subservient, and I mean, we're getting a little bit heavy here, but she was just a baby making machine, and they had no physical contact before their wedding night, and they have no idea what to do. But that woman who gives her tips, that's real.
Yes.
I heard about those
This
things
is
happening.
crazy. Yeah, I didn't know. I wasn't
That's
sure about
real.
that, but
No, that's real. I've heard I can't remember what their name was, but there would be these people that kind of coach you, teach you what you're supposed to do, what married people are supposed to do, and it's insane. But like, remember that whole rumor going around when we were growing up that they did it through a sheet and all that.
yes,
I don't
exactly,
think
the sheet and the
I
whole.
think we can break that myth. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was actually waiting to see if that was true because yeah, a lot of we grew up in that world, but we didn't know about that kind of stuff because we were young and like they wouldn't, talk about it to us. And
We had a teacher who has a shaved head. We had a teacher who had a shaved head. I don't know if you remember her. I'll tell you her name.
if you
I'll
can tell
remind
me
you
of
of her.
it.
She was a large woman with glasses,
Oh yeah,
lovely
yeah, yeah.
lady.
Yeah, I remember her.
She was from that community, had a shaved head, and it wasn't very similar to this show. It's not unheard of from a girl to be plucked from a family in another country and brought to be
Brought
married
over.
to a man in a different country than her
Oh
own,
yeah,
away from her family. So you can imagine the kind of pressure, and Orthodox goes through the fact that her mother was one of those types of people, and we know several people who were plucked from religious communities around the world and made to live in Australia with some guy they only met a couple times because their family deemed it okay. Like, we know what's best for you. This family we approve of, and you're going to marry this guy, right?
yeah, and I guess like you said, like how would they know any
How
why?
would they
Like
know any
how would they know
different?
any different? Because they're kept in this community and they don't get to speak to people outside their religion. They don't get to see anything outside their religion. They don't get taught anything outside their religion.
That's right. That's
So
why
they
almost
don't know any
I think
better.
probably it's so true, and probably the religious people that we went to school with, their eyes we probably educated them a little bit because we had TVs and music, and we'd listen to, like, the Backstreet Boys and Michael Jackson and, like,
Right.
talk about TV shows, and they were probably like, "What's that?" And like,
Yeah,
"What's
because they
that?"
didn't they couldn't listen to music that was
No,
secular
you could
music
yeah,
or
you could only listen to religious music, not secular. Or even when we did school productions back, remember, it was, like,
oh my
very, like,
gosh.
it's supremely inappropriate and immodest to have us performing to a dance track because we did do dance. We had a
Oh yeah,
production
we
where only
couldn't have
women
words
attend,
in
there's
it.
no men. Your dad
Yeah.
and brothers couldn't attend the show.
No.
Only the females in your family could attend the show because it's totally inappropriate for men to watch you dance, sing, or perform or have
To
any kind of
anything.
yeah, it's completely immodest. Um, and yeah, it was very inappropriate for the music to be secular. So I remember the choreographer she picked a bit of a classical piece that was turned into a bit of a techno vibe.
Mhm.
That's what we our dance to. It's so many examples. Like, we could go. I mean, really, we could go on and on. Like,
On
there's
and
so
on.
many.
There's a scene where she's in Berlin and she finally has different kinds of friends. And the Israeli girl Yael, she really broke it down harsh reality for this girl and crushed her soul.
So
But
glad you brought
that
that
was like
up. Yeah.
the Israel. It's kind of like the Israeli mentality a little bit. And I remember you wanted to talk about that
Yeah, I'm
um,
really glad you brought it up
as
because
well.
it I think from what I see of the show or the way they've done it, she's very strategically placed, that girl, Yael, I
Yeah,
think the character's name is. She's completely polar opposite
very
as a
blunt.
Jew.
Yeah.
No, but just even as a Jew,
Oh, as yeah,
completely as in, like,
completely.
she knows she's in the presence of another Jew, as an Orthodox Jew, but she's placed there so strategically as this progressive, modern Israeli, secular, completely secular character who has
Mhm.
so much disdain for her fellow, I guess, Jew, who's completely, in that bubble, and she says something very profound like, oh, it could be really harsh, and, like, I
But
don't know
she
if a
helps
real
her in a
person
way
would
as
say
well.
that. Something like, "Oh, we're too busy defending the present to be sentimental about the past." Not to say that we
Oh, yeah,
shouldn't
that
remember
too.
the Holocaust, we absolutely should, but it's very on purpose that she said that because, you know, modern Israelis are sort of secular and fighting, and the religious Jews get an exemption from fighting. They believe that their
Mhm.
work is sitting and praying. So there is a lot of contention there, and I'm glad they demonstrated that in the
Yeah,
in the show because
that
it's
really
true.
came
Like it's
out.
almost like she didn't. It's almost like she was. And the Israeli women are notoriously prickly on the outside and very soft on the inside, and she was definitely like portrayed as that character. Like she tore her to shreds every
Oh, yeah.
time, but she was trying to be.
But for
She
her
was like
own
cruel.
good, like, for
Yeah,
her
yeah. She
own
was trying
good,
to
look
be
at
cruel to be kind. Yeah. Did you relate a lot to how it took her on this journey of all these new things she was trying? Did you feel all, like, emotional and stirred up from when she went through all those new experiences? Like, eating
like,
ham
trying
for the
on
first
pants and
time or
eating ham.
trying
Yeah,
pants,
because
like, it's all.
even I felt bad. My family ate well, they didn't eat ham or pork or anything, but my family ate, like, non-kosher, and they ate out, and they ate seafood and stuff, and me, I wouldn't do it because of the way
Yeah.
that I was, brought up at the school. Like, the school had more
Mhm.
power than my family when I look back at it. I'm
Correct.
like, "What
Yeah.
what?" Anyways, and then
Yeah.
yeah, so watching that was like, "Whoa," and even the first time I tried, like, seafood and, I felt strange and bad for
Same.
liking it.
Same.
Um,
I was like, "This
so
is really good. Shit."
yeah, but you know what? If anything, it wasn't to the extreme of her because we grew up. Our families weren't like that, and it did make me like going to that school that we did made me want to see the world and explore the world more because I hadn't and meet people of different, everything of different religions, of races, of but
Mhm.
genders, and any everyone because I hadn't experienced that growing up, and that's what I wanted to do, and I really did that. I,
Did.
went traveled everything. I wanted to see more. That's what it made me do.
Interesting perspective. I like how, and it's funny because all people are different. For me, I had one of those red curtain moments. I called them red curtain moments when you realize everything you've been told or the way you perceive things is completely false, and the red curtains come down, and you see everything, like you see the truth or the real show. You
Yeah,
know, I always call it that moment, and what it did for me was make me realize, "Oh my god, these people are wearing black hats and coats and beards, and they say all these things, but they're just like you, and they're just like ordinary people, they're not holier. They're just
yeah,
people like everyone else who have, you know, desires which can be considered, immoral or wrong. They do deeds that are wrong. They bitch about people just like everyone else.
right.
They
That
commit crimes."
religion
It
doesn't
it it
mean you're
broke
a
down
good
it yeah,
person.
it made me rebel against the whole system. I was like,
Yeah,
"No way," and I married a Muslim, and I was like, "That's the ultimate rebellion."
right. Yeah, what that was seen to be, but it
Yeah,
is true. It's like being religious or of a religion doesn't make you a holier or better person.
you're just wearing the
And that
garb and doing the thing.
that was shown with the main characters. Was it his cousin?
Yeah, Moishi. How many Moishis did we know? So many
Moishi.
Moishis,
Oh
come
my
on.
god, did you
And
see what I
most of the
yeah.
guys are like Moishi, and they're not like Yankee.
No, not at all. Which
Most of the guys are
hilarious.
like Moishi.
They are. They are.
They're
So
world they're
but
more worldly than they would let you believe.
they think that they're better than you, but they're doing, like, pretty
The wrong thing. Oh my
wrong
god,
deeds.
hello? This is what was the voice note I sent you, the epitome of it all? Making a
Mhm.
blessing on a banana while you've broken into someone's house
Well,
does
and you
not
could
make
have
it
done.
better. It's like the ultimate
Right.
hypocrisy, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
making a blessing on the food that you've been given by God while you've committed a crime is this is like the ultimate,
Right. But
you know,
in his head,
contradictory
like,
thing of religion.
it wasn't committing a crime, it was
Right,
putting themselves
yes,
back
the
to their
faith.
religion, so they were
It's true, the
doing it
faith is
for
higher, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
Um, just wow. I'm so
So much
glad
wow.
that we watched that. I'm so glad I saw that. And here's a question. If you could, do things differently in terms of how you grew up, where you went to school, would you?
No, I can't regret it because it's all that I knew, and I actually wanted to stay there. There was times when my mum was
Oh
wanting to
yeah,
pull me out,
same.
but I
My mum
wanted to
did.
stay.
My mum did, and I cried, but that was also because I was so used to that. And I was
Way
used
too
to it was a
yeah.
small
It was
school.
too
We were
late by
used to
then, she
it.
should have done it. I regret she didn't do it when the other people did it when they went to high school.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Once
mean,
I started high school, it was too late.
it's way too late. I agree, because even
But
when she
see, Beck
tried
and
in
I were
high
on the
school,
fringe, like, we had a lot of friends who went to other schools that were more
we
secular,
did.
so we
We
were
did.
in the world we almost were in 2 worlds at the same time, which is why I don't regret it because I
We
got
got a
so
bit of
much
everything.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that Nick watched it as well as Howie did.
Yeah,
And
I think we
like
can shed some light on some stuff, like, there might be questions you might be asking, like,
the foil
why
all over the
why did they have
kitchen,
foil in the kitchen that time in that scene when she ran into the kitchen during,
and it was
a
Passover.
meal?
Mhm.
It was Passover, so they have to cover everything because, there's, like you're not okay, so long story short, you're not allowed to eat leavened bread, you can only eat unleavened bread, and anything leavened, like, bread, pastries, spaghetti, pasta, all that stuff. It's called chametz. It's um, it's basically not allowed to be eaten during the 7 or 8 days of Passover. So they cover. They first of all they do a massive clean, but they cover everything that they normally use. Now they were clearly not super wealthy. I went to the one one of the people in the community's house for Passover once, and they had two kitchens, one kitchen for Passover and one kitchen for the regular days. Can you imagine, Beck?
Mhm.
Just a separate kitchen
One
for
kitchen.
Passover.
So what yep, they
So
were
basically, the foil was there to make sure that whatever like they've missed,
you weren't touching it.
it's
Yeah, it's all
all
contained.
kosher. It's like kosher for Passover,
Mhm.
right?
That
And then
that
other
is
people
right.
might be wondering, like, what the hell is with this A rule? Like, the hanging wire across in the power line when the scene's opening scene, and like you can't how the women were like all stuck in the friggin in the what do you call it in the entryway,
In the
and she
entryway,
couldn't
yeah.
take her bag
Yeah.
because like basically so ridiculous. And this is why religion is ridiculous, because they will create loopholes to suit them.
Yeah,
This is
this is what
another
didn't
thing.
make sense. Yeah.
So on the Sabbath, you're not allowed to carry anything because it's like doing work. You're not allowed to do any work. And you're not allowed to. And the main thing is, and I mean, I'm pretty sure I might get this not exactly right, but it's a certain cubic measurement that you're allowed to carry, right? So like you have to go to synagogue. Maybe you need a prayer book, or you have to take your kids and your whole family to your mother's house for lunch. So you're going to need to push that pram. But doing that means
Breaking the
you're gonna
Sabbath.
break the Sabbath. So they've created an Eruv, which is called a boundary. Translation is it's a boundary around the whole community or the suburbs that they live in, and so that they can carry what's convenient to them on the Sabbath, which is why, you can't turn on lights, you can't boil water, you can't turn on electricity. So they've got urns running in their houses, they've got timers for the lights. So they've done all these things and loopholes to make it really convenient to live their lives on the Sabbath. And that's just another example why, I mean, I'm like a bit and just yeah,
Right.
maybe I might sound like it, but I'm just telling you like the real deal. They do have urns and they do have timers for the lights. That's
Yeah.
not a joke.
No,
The
not
other
at all.
thing that maybe people would question was why did they put this big white cloth on her head when she got married. You might
Yep.
everyone caught
Yep,
that? Yeah,
yep.
you caught that. It's
Mhm.
like, why did he cover her face up?
The whole
No,
face.
it's not some kind of, like, horrible female, like, torture thing. It's like, um there's that old story in the Bible, people might not remember it, but when Jacob tried to marry Rachel, um, Rachel and Leah's father tricked him and gave him his crying, ugly daughter,
Right.
Leah, because he covered her with the veil, and he had to wait many years, and then he got to marry Rachel. So he had both sisters as wives, which is kind of crazy. And then so they do this, they do that covering of the face with the veil to remember, that story of Jacob marrying Leah, basically, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Um,
Yeah, how
the
he didn't
payas are those
understand that.
curly. Oh yeah, what did Howard say about the
He
payas?
just was like, "What? Like,
As in, like,
what? Is this
why was it
real?"
such a big deal when he cut them, or
Well, no, no, like, he just didn't get it, like, he didn't understand it. He
oh, you didn't
also
get
was
why they had the curly things?
no, he
I
didn't.
actually forget why they have
I
those
have, so
curly
I did, and even he was just like, he's like, "What's Yankee short for?" And I was like, "What?"
Yankel.
Yeah, I was like, "Yankel?" Like, um, just
It's a Yiddish name.
yeah, yeah, it's
And
just
Yiddish is wonderful, like, oh my god, it just took me back, and, like, honestly, it did stir while I sound very anti, it did stir up some really nice, like, wonderful emotions of, like, my grandmother
yeah,
spoke
my
Yiddish,
grandmother,
and
yeah,
it's true
same.
everyone suffered in the Holocaust and stuff, but you just have to keep it real. Like, there is a lot of wonderful tradition and sentimentality that goes along with it, but you don't have to be extreme about it, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
feel like
it did
I feel
take me
like
back
it's
to, like,
all
yeah.
yeah, we all go back to the extreme and the non-balanced of things, and
Didn't Mrs. Jager speak a bit of Yiddish?
oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, she grew up well,
Couldn't
we
she
went back to her
Didn't she
town.
understand a little bit of Yiddish?
Yeah, she spoke Yiddish, like, at
Yeah, she
home.
spoke Yiddish, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
They all of
They
the
all
Jews who came from Eastern Europe spoke Yiddish, my grandmother as well. And there's so
yeah,
many phrases I relate
but
to when they kept saying "Ich weiß nicht," and I was like, "Oh my god, ich weiß," even my mum
you
still
need a
says "Ich weiß
name.
nicht." I
But the
got
thing is with
basically, "Ich weiß nicht" is like I have no idea.
my grandma was the complete opposite, though. She didn't wanna hear anything about religion after the Holocaust. So,
Isn't Oh my god, you
she
raised such a good point, such a good
So
point.
she was so I mean, her story is horrible. I won't get into it because it's tragic and awful. And what she went
Mhm,
through, she didn't want to talk about it ever. And to be
mhm.
honest, my grandma and grandpa ate ham all the time. They had a ham in the fridge, like all the time. They ate everything.
Ah,
Like it was so
you raised
funny
such a good
when I think
point,
about
really,
that.
because it's so I'm glad you raised it. It's so true because, you either went 2 ways, right? You either went
Yeah.
down the path of, "This is pathetic. We should not do this. Like, we should why are we holding on to these religious acts and being so
Uh-huh.
extreme when we got persecuted and killed for it?" And then the others
Yes.
went the opposite way of,
Yeah.
"We have to keep this, like,
Yeah.
protected and alive
Keep it
because
protected
we need
and
to."
populate
Yeah.
and yeah.
But to be fair, like, my mum also said, like, my mum told me stories about, her grandmother and grandfather in Eastern Europe during the war, and it's like she's like, where they, because if you trace back, my mum said that all her grandparents and great grandparents were all really religious Jews, like with those
Yeah.
black hats and the furry
Same.
hats and the coat,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
where they sat praying in their houses is where they died, where they got shot. Like, it didn't save them. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Mhm. So true. So your
But
mum
the
watched
yeah.
it and,
No,
did she
she
not
said
watch
she's
it
got
or
it
she
on the
hasn't?
radar.
Ah,
She's
okay.
about to watch it, she's got it on the radar, but I reached out to my sister who also went to the same school, and I said, "Oh my god, Vicky, did you watch Orthodox?" I was
Yes.
shocked. I was shook to the core by her answer. I still can't get over it. We're still in, a WhatsApp kind of
Oh, yeah.
hysteria
What
argument
I'm
over it.
dying to hear what she thought.
She said her husband had it on, and she saw it out of the corner of her eye and said she didn't really relate to it, and I was just shook to my absolute core.
That's interesting.
How
I mean, there was
she
someone
didn't
in her grade that was married off at, like, 17.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's okay.
She said she didn't
Interesting.
relate. I was, like, shocked. I was like, "What do you mean you
Okay.
didn't relate?" I guess because you know what? Everyone's got their own movie going on in their head, and maybe her perspective was that it was like maybe she didn't get exposed to that extremeness at all. She said our life wasn't anything like hers with the Yiddish, and that also I didn't relate to her behavior. She also said there was a very slow tempo of the movie, too many close-ups of her thinking. But I
Uh, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you seem to breeze through the whole thing. My parents watched it all in one go as well.
what did
Um,
they say?
oh, they thought it was really good.
Mhm.
My dad did kind of see the point, I guess, of the populating of the Holocaust, like just trying to understand where they were coming from.
Okay.
He mentioned, that Yael character and how strong she was, but she was really helping her out. But we didn't get into it in a heavy way. But
Yeah.
they enjoyed it. Yeah, they
Do
liked
you
it.
think there'll be a season 2?
I don't think so. I mean, it's loosely based on this lady's life who actually made the. I think she wrote a book first. I don't
I
think
wanna
that.
read it.
I think what happened with the lady, with her story, is she did escape to Berlin, but I think she moved out of the community and then divorced, and so it's loosely
Oh,
based on her life.
here's another thing, which,
Hmm.
like, even though we won't tell everyone how it ends, but let's just say that in Jewish religion, like, especially religious, because the religious Jews have their own legal system. The woman can't request a divorce, the man has to give it to her. She can only divorce him, and he can only divorce her if he allows it. It's called a get. If he doesn't give her a get, he can stay married to her for as long as he chooses. It's very sided to the man. Like even Moishi, the character Moishi, who clearly has a gambling and drinking and
Oh,
whore
and every
problem,
right.
was able to come back into the community and be accepted, but he's been used and he's tortured and so forth, but as in a tortured soul, but it's easier for him to just kind of come back and sort of, you know.
Yeah, and I also, felt for the mum that was, basically her daughter was stripped away from her, and the
Yeah,
daughter had
yeah.
no idea, had a different perspective of everything because of what she was
Mm.
made to believe. Um,
I like how they even captured how religious men can't even like shake your hand or look at you in the face
no,
when
nothing,
to another woman,
nothing.
like very, like I love how they captured those little details. I know it's just a show, but I can imagine that marital relations would have gone really badly for a lot of women, from what we
For
saw.
sure, because you're not even allowed to be
You
intimate
can't
with your
experience any
partner
pleasure.
before. But yeah, that's what's so weird. You can't even have anything before. Like there's no intimacy.
Correct.
Like you're
Yeah,
supposed
you
to
just have to
figure it
go.
out after you're married. Um,
Yeah.
which, like I said, I'm sure back in the day that's what they did. But like we're now in a modern day and things are changing, but they try to keep things the same. And it has been a good, gosh, how long has it been? 20 years since we've been at school? Not exactly,
Yeah.
but almost. So maybe things have changed within that religion, but I don't know because we ventured off into our own world and
I guarantee that there are some couples out there that are meeting in secret before they get married.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Um, and it's just I think it was definitely. I'm interested in. I would love to speak to someone, not just my husband, that's watching it that had no idea of this going on, but it was like, oh yeah, I've always seen the guys in the black hats, and like watching this, and I would love to hear their opinion on all of this.
Yeah, send us an email if you like, if you're listening. We'll be happy to get any, like, feedback and opinions, like Beck said, on if you've watched this. Like, tell us what you think if you didn't grow up at all in that community, or if you did grow up in a religious community yourself, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at canwesayit@gmail.com.
Yes, please. I'd
And
love.
yeah,
We would
we
love
it's
to
such an
hear it.
interesting topic for us. We have been exposed to it so much, and we grew up with it, and then we left it in a heap. Really, I would say from my perspective.
Yeah, it's like our
and
feet were our toes were in it, but like we were kind of half in, half out.
I
Luckily,
reckon they I'd say knee
knee
deep.
deep, knee deep, but luckily we both, like we said, we came from families that were not about that. Um,
Correct. Very much not. Actually, my mom and dad, when I was born for the first year of my life, they went they gave ultra Orthodox a try, but it only lasted a
wow.
year. My mum did the whole mikveh thing. She
Oh
said it was
wow.
interesting.
Right.
She said it
How
added an element of interest to the marriage, but, like, otherwise, yeah, they didn't keep it up. It was, like, too much.
right, I'm sure. I'm sure it's too much for a lot of people, especially after you've watched that. It's like, wow. Um, it was a lot. I think at the end of the day, the story here, it's I think people can relate to it whether they have come from, that kind of religion or any religion, or just feeling trapped and wanting to be free and see things and
Mm.
experience things and be happy. I think it's about freedom and your own
It's about the
rights.
freedom, yeah. And the fact that my favorite part is when she saw the red lipstick that she tried on for the first time, it was
Yes.
called Epiphany. I
Yeah.
thought that was amazing. It was like, totally, that's your moment of your epiphany moment.
And I think, yeah, it was, yeah, that I loved that moment. That was such a great scene. And I think it's just, I think, everyone should get to experience life and be free and make choices for their own, not not from what other people are choosing for you at the end of the day. And I
100%.
think if you can take that from there, then great. But yeah, I think just because it was touching so deeply on the religion that we grew up in is why it really affected us watching this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But yes, please like, share, comment. We'd love to hear your opinions on this episode and on all our other episodes as well.
Yeah, drop us a line.
Always,
We need some comments and feedback, so we'd love to hear from you.
Can we say it? Can we say it?